Sup, Dad?
Welcome to This Dad Reads, a pop culture podcast on books, shows, games, and all things nerdy. What is going on, my friends? I hope everyone is doing well out there. I hope everyone had a great Star Wars day. May the 4th be with you. I know Chelsea and I from Space Wizards Book Club had an amazing time hanging out with some of you guys via our live stream on Instagram. We had Tessa Gratton and Lydia Kang and Chris Kemshaw joining us. We gave away a whole bunch of prizes. I didn't really talk about it on the podcast last time because when I was recording it, things weren't finalized. But if you're following me on socials and hanging out in that online space, I knew you probably had heard about it. So I had a really great time. It was so much fun. I love doing events like that, just being able to hang out with friends and talk to people and overall just have a good time and give away some fun prizes. It was just a great time. I hope whatever you did to celebrate Star Wars Day, you had an amazing time. And I am back faster than I think I ever have before. This is probably the shortest interval between episodes I've ever recorded. But the reason why is that today we have 2 new Star Wars books out in the world, A Valiant Vow and The Acolyte Wayseeker, both books written by Justina Ireland. So I had to come back and talk about those books and have her on the show. So without further ado, I am going to catch you up on the last books that I've read since my last recording because there have been a few. So let's jump right into that. I know you are all just begging to know what Michael Connelly books me and my wife read. Well, we finished The Brass Verdict, which is the second book in the Lincoln Lawyer series, and the first book really where Detective Bosch and Mickey Haller interact and engage with each other. This one was a little bit different for me because I remember the plotline better because the Lincoln Lawyer show on Netflix featured this storyline, but it was really interesting to see how they changed things for the show versus what the source material was in the book. And in the show, Bosch isn't a part of the show because there's kind of different streaming services that own the rights to these characters. So I'm actually interested to go watch the Lincoln Lawyer series again to see really how they parsed that out and changed things up for the show versus how the book laid out. The book obviously was super fun and entertaining and a page turner like all of Connelly's books. But I also read Wayseeker, the Acolyte novel, which I'm going to be chatting with Justina Ireland about in just a few minutes. Guys, this book actually really surprised me. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. It's a really interesting take on Vernestra Row's character, obviously hundreds of years into the future before we have known her in the High Republic, but also a little bit before what we see her in the Acolyte TV show. So Justina Ireland, I just thought, did an amazing job of like making some through lines and having some character connections from the High Republic. So I will say, if you've only watched the Acolyte and haven't read the High Republic books, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much as I did. But if you are part of my High Republic fam, you will definitely appreciate it. And I know there's been some chatter online about how this book can quote unquote spoil Trials of the Jedi. I don't think that's the case, but however you decide to read it, whatever order you choose to read it in, that's totally up to you. Whenever you decide to pick it up, I think it's a 5-star read. It's one of Justina's best, and you will hear a lot more about this book when I chat with her in a second. I also read and reviewed A Valiant Vow, which is the last middle grade and Justina's last middle grade novel in the High Republic Phase 3, so jumping back in time. Again, really interesting because I won't say which characters are basically mentioned or are happening in both books, but it's really interesting to see some characters in this phase of the High Republic doing stuff and interacting, and I'm really trying not to give anything away, but how their storyline kind of wraps up and then how that impacts the future. I will say I loved seeing Churro the Hutt back. He's one of my favorites that made his appearance earlier in Phase 3. He is just such like a sweetheart. I don't know how else to say it, but he's so pure. And seeing him and some of his Jedi friends like Tep Tep and Zenny Greylark, Justina mentions in a little bit in our chat, writing for middle grade versus YA versus adult, really just, it's all about kind of perspective and how these age ranges of characters deal with things. So Again, I won't spoil how she mentioned it because she talks about it, way more eloquently than I am. But these kids go through some pretty intense stuff, and I feel like it's just the way that information is packaged and the way it's delivered and the way that they respond to those traumas and things that are going on, even like down to politics. There's some like political stuff going on in this book. It's all age appropriate, and I feel like if you're a younger middle grade reader between that 8 and kind of 12, 13-year-old age range, you're going to get some fun Star Wars-y stuff, but you're also going to be kind of exposed to some, real life issues and how kids and beings of that age handle things like that. So A Valiant Vow and Wayseeker are both out today. Both of my reviews are out on thisdadreads.com, and I'm going to be chatting with Justina Ireland in just a couple minutes. Well, those are the books that I have been reading lately. I have also been enjoying Andor Season 2, but as of this recording, I haven't watched the new episodes yet, so I will definitely be talking about that on a future episode. But without further ado, I think we just need to get into my chat with Justina Ireland. My droid pal, Casey78, has been getting things queued up, so why don't you take it away, Casey? Joining me today is one of the Luminous Five who brought the High Republic Initiative to life and has 2 brand new Star Wars books out now. It is first-time guest to the show, Justina Ireland. Welcome to the show, Justina.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. You have been one of the Project Luminous authors that I have yet to have on solo to the podcast. I know we've interacted a number of times, so I'm just
Yeah,
thankful to have you here.
it's good to be here. Yeah, no, I usually try to stay off the radar as much as possible.
I feel that. I feel that. I do believe the last time we interacted was at San Diego Comic-Con a couple years ago. You might not remember this, but I was like working the Bob's Burger booth for like an afternoon, and you were just like in peace, casually walking the exhibit hall floor, and I was like, Justina! And I totally just like interrupted your piece and like made us take a picture and sign some of my books.
Yeah, weren't you handing out the pins for Crapopolis or something?
Yes, I was. Yes. And you were like, oh, hi. I have no shame. I'm just like, I know who you are. You can't hide from me, from the bookish people.
Bookish people are the best people.
I
So
know, I know, I totally agree. Well, sorry, I might have to edit that because now I'm looking at my notes. Sorry.
no, that's okay. You're fine.
Well, again, thank you for being here. And from, before we started the recording, we were talking about, it's 8 a.m. my time. I'm a parent, I'm a dad. So from one, a exhausted adult parent to another, how are you doing? How is 2025 going for you?
I mean, my kid's a junior, and so
Oh, okay, different vibes.
I'm just trying to get him out the house. I'm just trying to get him into the world as a functional human being. So, yeah.
I feel that. Mine are not that age, and I feel like I'm also trying to get them out. I'm just kidding. Not permanently yet, not
It's
permanently.
so close to the end. Yeah.
No. Yeah. We're coming off the tail end of spring break, so I'm like, we need breaks from each other,
Yeah, my son just went back to school yesterday. So yeah,
Oh,
so we're
okay,
in
yeah.
the same time period. Yeah, and it's kind of just like you can't sleep until noon now. You have to get up and go to
Right.
school. Yeah, you have to be functional good.
Yes. Oh man,
So
I know.
hard.
I feel like every phase is so different and so hard. So it's really hard not to try to wish that you were in one when you're still in another. So
Yeah.
I'll be there eventually. So I know they all have their own struggles. So I want thank you for being here again. I've said that a ton of times, but today, the day of this episode's release, you actually have 2 new Star Wars books out. One is A Valiant Vow, a middle grade, from the High Republic, and the other, which we're going to be talking about today, is the Acolyte Wayseeker. So
Yeah.
how does that feel like having, I don't think this has ever happened for you before. You have 2 books out on the same day? I mean,
I had 2 books out on the same day last year, but they were not Star Wars books.
okay,
So it
okay.
was, yeah, this is the second year in a row it's happened to me, and I'm just like, I need to plan my life better.
I know I was gonna say lucky or not. I don't
This is just literally I keep doing it to myself. I'm like, what's wrong with you, Justina? Yeah,
know.
no, it's weird because it feels so when you're a younger author, right? When you're, and I don't mean age-wise, I mean just in your career,
Mm,
a book release day feels like a really big deal. But now that I've had so many books come out, it's kind of like the end, right? It's like,
mm,
cool, I'm done. It's almost a relief. And so for me, the work and the stress is way closer to that second or third round of revisions when you're just trying to make sure everything comes together, and then copy edits, especially writing
mm.
Star Wars. A lot of the times the copy edits is where it's like, oh, this is a conflict with something else that we missed, and so it's like our last chance to like get it right, so we don't end up as a Wikipedia article or something. So like, yeah, so like for me, it's like this is like, woo, it's out, it's done, people can read it, it's great. So
Okay, good.
it's cool, cool, it's cool.
I hope it's still fun because I do feel like I'm kind of I'm in my full-time gig in that world too, where it's like we put out publications and stuff sometimes not on the scale of books, but by the time it's out, you kind of feel like I don't want to deal with this anymore. But is it still fun? Like, I mean, obviously you
It's
get the
yeah,
reaction
it's
of the fans and of like people being able to read it.
yeah, it's fun in different ways. I
Yeah.
think it's fun to see um the things people gravitate towards in a story, like things that you think are just kind of like throwaways, or
Mm,
you're just like, I'm just going to put this in so that it makes sense, it makes the world feel real and big. And those are the things people will lock in on. It's like, oh, I need to know more about this. And it's like, what? Like, I just made that up. Somebody else is gonna have to figure out what that is. Like, you know, it's just it's like because it's such a big, you know, it's such a big world and such a big galaxy for the storytelling. But yeah,
sure.
no, it's always like it's always fun.
Mm,
I would go back to like a much easier job if it wasn't fun. Like for being a freelancer is of course, you know, it has its own ups and downs. But yeah,
sure.
like it's still fun. I still love writing books. I still love storytelling. So
Oh,
it's
I
cool.
bet. I bet like any artist who like puts their stuff out in the world, I kind of feel I've heard like, musicians say the same thing. And like I said, at heart, I'm an artist too. And so like it just feels like you're putting it out in the world, right? And letting other people experience it and like kind of finding the delighting in the things that bring them joy is probably a whole new like way to experience your relationship with the project that you've been working on.
Yeah, it's really about letting go.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Because I think like, you know, if you don't let go, then you're one of those authors who are like responding to like every Goodreads review, like looking a little unhinged. And so like I think it's just really it's like this is what I loved about it. This is what I love. Here's for me, you know, to share it with you. I always look at it like a potluck, right? Where you bring your dish to a potluck and some people will enjoy it and some people will be like, ew, I don't eat that. But it's like it's okay because it's like it's still something you enjoyed and the people who do enjoy it, that's what matters. And so
Right.
for that's what putting a book out is like. I'm just like, you'll enjoy it or you'll hate my ugly baby. It's fine. I still love my baby. Like, so
But like we said, the bookish people are the best. So
yes, they
I would
are.
argue that in like the bookish space, especially in Star Wars, like there's so much love and so much like I don't know, care and I just feel like there's so much love even and there's not as much like negativity. So that's at least my experience. So,
Oh yeah, like I don't think a bad review is negativity. Let me just like put
oh,
that. Like
sure.
I think books speak to people in different ways, and
A
I think a
thousand
bad
percent.
review is just as valid. John Waters has this great quote about I never read my bad reviews. I never read my good reviews or my bad reviews because if I believe the good reviews, I have to believe the bad reviews as well, and I never believe the
Mm,
bad reviews. So like I think it's like one of those things. It's like when you're talking about reviews, it's like yeah, total. But I don't think the book people don't tend to do like what the rest of the fandom does, which is like to pile on
yeah.
something that they have made up in their own brains because they haven't actually seen the piece of media yet. They saw a 30-second clip, right? And so like I
Hmm.
feel like book people are better because they're like, well, I heard this thing, but I'm gonna wait till I read it myself to have an opinion. And
Right.
I think that's really what we need to do more as adults is like, you know, instead of just like reacting, like take a
Uh-huh.
moment, digest,
Yeah.
and then come back with a cogent, well thought out
A
opinion.
thousand percent. And because the book people read, we pay
Yeah.
attention and we read. We do the work.
It's an endangered species book people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, my favorite people. So, speaking to Wayseeker specifically, which is, you have two very different books out in the world. So Wayseeker, basically kind of like an adult-ish novel, and then middle grade with Valiant Vow. But and particularly for Wayseeker, like you've been writing Vernestra Rowe for like literal years now. Like it's been a huge chunk of your life, and the fandom obviously has been experiencing her for a long time. But especially for writing her for Wayseeker, like what sort of challenges did you find writing for her at this specific point in her life?
So when I watched Acolyte, I was just as shocked, I say, as everybody else was when I saw Rich. I'm like, what? What? Who is this person? And so for me, it was a lot of drawing those connections, right?
Hmm,
So like I love characters. I'm like, if you come to my books, like you should be coming for characters. Like characters are what I love. Plot is plot, but characters for me always drive a story.
hmm.
And so like trying to figure out how this young gifted kid who was kind of suffering from burnout like became this adult, that was really where I started with the story. It's like what is it like to live for so long and to
Mm.
also maybe outlive a bunch of people you care about. And not just because like, they die in tragedies, but just because they've reached the end of their natural life. And I kind of came up from that perspective. It's like, what does that do to a person? Like I always joke, I'm like, I'm 46 and I'm very tired. And so like I'm like, but when I was 20, I was tired in a different way. And so
Mm.
like, thinking about like how I would feel as not only a creator, but as a human being in another 50 years, like I can't imagine living that long. Mostly just because I'm like, I cannot imagine living that long. It's just a lot to go through. And like every day can be a lot if if you're paying attention, if you're, especially in this political environment. And so I just thought about that. It's like, what is it like? She lived through a conflict, right? We don't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily a war, but it was definitely like a pretty widespread conflict. Didn't engulf the entire galaxy, but a good portion of it. Like she's lived through a lot of things. She's lost a lot of people she cared about. And it's like, what does that look like? And what do you still believe after all that? And I think
Mm.
that's really like what essentially a character for me is. It's like, what do they believe and what do they hold true and what do they value? And how does that inform their decisions as they make their way through the story? And so that's where I started with Vernestra, is just kind of trying to dial in on her is and that's one of the reasons like her chapters are in first person, because I
Mm.
think sometimes in third person there's space for a reader to infer things about a character that we don't necessarily know, but in first person you get to feel and hear how the character thinks about themselves and about everybody, and whether they're telling the truth to themselves or not is another matter up for debate, whether they're a reliable narrator or not. But you still get to see how they're processing things. And for me, that was really a large part of connecting character. This book was really a struggle. It was really, really difficult to to put myself in that character's shoes, because it's it's hard to think about loss and hard to think
Mm.
about the things and the people you fight for and what happens when they're no longer around.
Mm.
And so like that was really, and then just, writing is always hard because writing is writing. But yeah, so like that was really where I started with her, is just trying to figure out, who is she and how does that compare to how we see her at the beginning in A Test
Mm.
of Courage, and how we'll see her, the Acolyte, and whatever follow-on media we end up getting from the Acolyte.
Sure, and I can imagine the challenge in that because there's still a large gap in time from between where we're last going to see her, wherever she ends up at the end of, the High Republic, quote unquote, versus now at this point in the Wayseeker. So there is you also have to kind of fill in but not fill in what's happened in her life like since that time. But
That's too
that's
many words. I don't
I know, right?
it's like here's 87 years or whatever of
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah. But it
I'm
was
like,
really
that's
well done. I just have to say, like, as a fan and someone who cares, not as I'm not gonna say cares as much about the characters as the creators, but like has hold them really close to my heart, like so many High Republic fans do. I really felt there was so much care and thought that goes into where she is, and I really felt her connected to the Vernestra that we know or that High Republic fans know versus who we saw in the Acolyte. Because I'm not going to speak for the whole fandom, but yeah, there was a bit of like surprise and like what has she gone through when we see her at this point, and she's obviously older, but she seems different. So like how did we get there? So I really appreciate that work that went into crafting how she is at this point in her life.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's okay to say like I watched The Acolyte and you're like, wow, I hate this character now. What happened? Like I think no, I think it's like I think it's
Sure.
okay to say those things.
Yeah.
And like I don't love everything either. Like I know like we're very positive about stuff, but I don't love everything either, and I don't expect
Hmm.
everybody else to love something. So like I did get did get a few emails when The Acolyte was airing, and I wasn't watching at the time because I was trying to write the book. And I
Mm.
had only had like the highest level of briefs from Lucasfilm about what the show was about, because I
Okay.
got, obviously I started before the show was I started writing for this book took like 87 years. I started writing before the show came out, and then I was like, um, but like when I like went like when I was getting emails, people were like, I can't believe this and that. I'm like, wait, what are they talking? And so I ended up having to go watch, because I was like, people were very upset. And
Mm.
like I don't respond. Like if you email me, like I read it, I just don't respond, just because I don't have time, but also because I feel like I don't want to invade reader spaces. Like I think if
Mm.
you read a book, like there's nothing I don't want to be the author who's over your shoulder who like, did you like what I did on page 73 there? Isn't that great? Isn't it cool? And so like I feel like, you have to give the reader their space. Um, but yeah, like I think it's okay to be like what happened to people, but it's also people change. People change
Mm,
and grow. It's like we got a little of
hmm.
that conversation, right? In the when the Last Jedi came out, people were like, "What happened to Luke?" And it's like the
Right,
man is old. He's had a lot of disappointments. Like we get bitter when we get older sometimes, if we don't try to work against that. So yeah, people
right.
change, they grow.
Yeah.
They should.
Of course. As I just thought of this as you were answering a question or so ago, talking about how having her go through so much loss and living through that, and I literally just got like a some Arwen vibes, like from Lord of the Rings, like when she's like worried about the vision she has of Aragorn like dying and like outliving everyone, like the elves, and I don't know, I literally just put that together. I was like, wow, that is such like an interesting and like tragic and emotional space to have a character be in, and like she's literally in it, and yeah, that really informs this book. And I literally just put those together. I don't know if that was in your mind at all.
No, but I mean, I think we do have a lot of long-lived characters. Like we never talk about like what it's like for Yoda. Like how many
Right.
Padawans has Yoda lost? Yaddle too. But like and like like to see them grow up and go on, and at some point you probably come to terms with it, but maybe
Sure.
not in the first 100 years of your life. Like maybe that's something you
Yeah.
could come to terms with in your, like how long did it take some of us to realize that we weren't going to be pop stars? I, because I can't sing, but like it took a long time to come to terms. Like I'm not going to be on American Idol because I'm terrible at this. Joking. But
But like,
like realizing who we are as people and coming to terms with what it means to exist and
yeah.
grow and change. Sometimes that's more difficult than we want it to be, or we make it should be, whatever.
Of course, or it's something that we all go through but don't often like talk about. Like, I don't know, I feel like grief is such like a lifelong thing that if anyone who's gone through it, it just stays with you your whole life, no matter how long you live. So
Yeah.
I think that's a real human part that's been injected that I thought was really nice and nice. But I mean, grief is
No,
nice,
nice
but
is good.
it's
Grief is
real. Like
nice.
it's real.
Yeah. Nobody can see my little elbows shoot
Yeah.
up like, yeah, grief.
Yay, grief. But I mean, anyone who's been in the higher public, we're used to it, in terms of what's been going on in these stories for so long. And we just get
Yeah.
to experience it in a different way with this book.
Like, welcome to High Republic. Who's your favorite?
Exactly.
Now we're gonna murder them. Yeah.
Your heart will be broken,
Yeah.
just like Vernestra's. Um,
Womp womp.
Womp womp. You touched on this a little bit, and I hesitate. Like, I really don't like putting boxes on things, but I know that like in terms of release and like people approach books different ways in terms of how they are marketed and how they are, put together. But like, I just want to ask because this is your first time kind of writing Vernestra as an adult, quote unquote, for like an
Mhm.
adult, quote unquote, novel. So, did your approach to writing her, I know we talked about kind of the emotional approach, but did your approach to writing her change at all because of those things, like having her be an adult with like a different type of book?
Yeah. So one of the things that people always ask me what's the difference between writing for kids and
Hmm.
adults, and it's really just context. Like I
Right.
don't have to contextualize a lot of stuff for adults. I can just say that's this and move on, right? I don't have to contextualize, politics or the environment or grief and death and relationships. Like in a middle grade novel, there's a lot of more context you have to put in there for younger readers because they don't know those things, right? This is their maybe their first exposure to these ideas. And then for YA, you have a little more flexibility, and usually they're like, put some romance in it. But then like you get to adult and you're just like, whatever, here you go. But also, I don't feel the need as an adult book to, and this is going to sound very funny because we're talking about the High Republic. I don't feel the need to worry about adults' feelings as much in an
Mm,
adult book that as I do in a younger reader's book. Like, I don't want to emotionally traumatize a 10-year-old, right? I don't think
that's
anybody
nice.
does. But like hard things are going to happen, but there's a lot more hand holding to lead them through that, right?
Hmm.
This hard thing has happened, but we're okay. Okay, let's go into the next part of the story. On an adult book, it's like, sucks, things suck, deal with it.
No
Next
holds
point,
barred. Yeah.
part. And I think that was really about digging in more. And also, Vernestra's always been probably a little bit mature for her age, even on
Right.
the page. And that was really a function of her, the Doogie Howser Jedi of it all kind of thing. And so I think like that's really where I think that like her struggle in the stories, the younger stories have always been about dealing with her level of responsibility versus her age and experience. And now those match. And we don't have to
Mm.
really, that's not so much an internal conflict for her anymore. So yeah, so it was really just about sitting down and it's like, oh great, I don't have to worry about you telling you that there are bad people in the world because you're an adult. You should know
Sure.
that. But yeah, like it's really just about kind of contextualizing things for the reader. Um, yeah, but in this case, I think Vernestra is just, I think we all get a little more jaded as we get older. And I
Mm,
don't mean like necessarily like to the level of bitter. Some people get bitter, but I just mean I think we things happen. And when you're young, like when you're like 10 or 17 and something bad happens, you're like, I can't believe this is happening. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. And then when you're an adult, you're just like, yeah, that seems about right. Right. And you just kind of keep it moving. And I think that's way more like the vibes that you'll see in the story. Like there's not as much of a like pause to consider what has happened in an
mm.
adult book. We just keep going.
That's probably why I related to it the most. And honestly, Justina, I think it's one of my favorite books I've read of yours ever. And I know you said you struggled with it, and but it was so worth it. And like I don't know. I think you answering that question probably answered it into me, like why I liked it so much. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I relate to like a jaded, tired, burned out adult. Oh, welcome to the
Yeah.
show, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome to
We're
adulthood.
tired and jaded,
We're tired 40-year-olds.
but it's okay. We got books. Yeah.
So, like I said before, you have Wayseeker and A Valiant Vow both releasing on the same day. They are actually out now. Technically, they are both set in the High Republic, but what were those experiences like, both writing and now releasing these two books concurrently?
Um, so releasing is fine. It's fine. And I say that and I genuinely mean it's fine. But writing them was a dumb decision. It was probably the dumbest thing I've ever.
Were you actually writing them at the same time?
Yeah, I was writing them at
Okay,
the same
okay,
time.
okay.
So like full disclosure, like it's IP, right? So it's like my schedule, the schedule is not set by me all the time.
Right.
And so Wayseeker was supposed to have been written months before I started writing Valiant Vow.
Okay. Okay.
Things got held up and delayed. And then so I got the contract for Wayseeker, and I already had the contract for Valiant Vow because all the High Republic stuff was like put into
Way in
place like
advance.
way in advance. And I was waiting to write a Valiant Vow because I wanted to kind of wait until Zoraida had pretty much finished her middle grade book. So one
Mm,
of the things that's really difficult about the High Republic is writing concurrently. And like there are a lot of like things where you'll say like, wait, you said this in this book, and then they contradict in this book. Well, yes, because we write at the same time, and
hmm
like you're not going to catch everything. And so I really wanted, because Valiant Vow is the last middle grade book, I really wanted it to be there to tie up all the loose ends, and not just the loose ends that we had established in previous middle grade books in phase one, but the loose ends that we had established in both Daniel and Alyssa's book and Zoraida had established in her book. And so I wanted to make sure that these stories, like those three stories, felt like they came together in like kind of a mostly cohesive narrative. Still standalone for kids who aren't picking up one or the other, but definitely something where you could read all three books and you could see kind of how they like kind of tie into one another. So I was waiting to write that. And then so I didn't write Wayseeker. And then by the time I got the materials, because there's also materials you need whenever you read a
hmm
Star Wars book to know what your like kind of your target is, right? Because they're like, go out and hit that target. And you're like, that one? They're like, no, that one way over there to the right. And you're like, oh, that's way far away. Let me, get in my car and drive. And so like it's kind of like you want to make sure you have that. And so by the time I got both things, I was writing at the same time. Now, Lucasfilm, like Tom over at Penguin Random House was great, or I guess it's Random House Worlds now. And then and Mike and Jen over at Lucasfilm, everyone was very like great, but I was also going through major burnout. I probably still am.
Mm.
The High Republic, like that pace of writing books, like I write my own books very slow. I do a lot of research on my own books because they're all historically based. And I spend usually like years thinking about my books before I actually write them or and try to like sell them or send them to my Harper editor. And so like it was just really, really difficult to write
Mm.
both, to the point where I was like, did I put this event in A Valiant Vow or did I put it in Wayseeker? And these are very different books, but like when you're dealing with like place settings and you're still dealing with Star Wars, and I was like, Wayseeker also is coming after the High Republic, so I don't want to spoil anything there. Valiant Vow takes place sort of before and sort of after the Trials of the Jedi, because there's a coda there in this
Okay.
end of the story. And so like I wanted to make sure I didn't spoil anything that too for adults who are reading both. So it just got to be the point where I was just, and then of course, like at that point, all of the conversations about Acolyte were happening. And then it just was a lot. It was like a lot, and I couldn't get into a space where it was quiet enough to write.
Mm,
I've talked about before. It's like one of the things about writing Star Wars is you have to be able to cancel out all the noise because there's so
hmm.
much noise. If you are on the internet for more than 5 minutes, you're going to get a Star Wars spoiler. Like just like the algorithm, like the algorithm knows like I have a basic barest interest in Star Wars, and because all and then everything is feeded to me in Star Wars, and so like it was just really difficult to create those things. But at the end, they ended up kind of being what I needed them to be, which was kind of like my love letter to what I had loved about creating the High Republic and these
Mm,
characters and what I had loved about writing Star Wars. Because I fully like there's always, the doors are always open, but I fully feel like my time in Star Wars is kind of at an end. And so it was one of those things I'm like, oh, this is what it is. There's a little bit of mourning, right? There's a little bit of
yeah,
mourning at the end of High Republic. There's a little bit of mourning, letting go of a character that, you spent time with, like a lot of time with over the past few years. And so I think that was really kind of making it more difficult for myself.
sure.
Like writing is functionally difficult, but it's also emotionally difficult. And I think that's the part. It's like when you're writing, you think you're writing about A, but it turns out you're actually writing about B, C, and D. And then you're like, oh, and then, and then you have to go like lay on the floor and listen to music for a little while until the moment passes. And so like that was really kind of for me. It was like literally about like saying goodbye to these characters in a way that I
Mm,
wanted to set them up for like a good future. So that way, if somebody else comes along and decides to write stories with these characters, they have some place to take them and a good place to
yeah.
start with.
I'm wondering now, I'm just thinking about the future and I don't future you and I don't know how often you like go back to your own books and like read them, but like
Never. The
I
answer
was
is never, ever, ever,
okay.
ever. I know I
Interesting.
don't. No, I do
Okay.
not. Unless I like the only time I've had to pick up other books is like when I was writing Defy the Storm. We had to go
Mm.
back to Out of the Shadows, and we had to go back to some of the other books to see what had happened. Cause like, but yeah, once I'm done with the book, I'm like, good job, book. It
Well,
goes on the
I
shelf.
did it.
I did it.
Yeah.
Gold star for me.
That's
On to the
awesome.
next
Well,
thing.
I was just thinking, it almost seems like this time capsule for you, right? And like, I'm wondering if you would, I mean, it seems like obviously you had your experience with it and you can put it on the shelf, but if there was ever a time, like, would that be something that, we're talking about like adulthood and like looking back on our lives and like nostalgia and like, I don't know. It's just interesting to think about like how you're going to experience these books or remember them like years in the future. Like Vanessa is going to remember her past in years in the future. So I just know like with time comes like, obviously perspective and all those things like that. And like I don't even know where I'm going. I'm just thinking like
No, it is like it is kind of like a like that's why like I have um so like I have a 17-year-old,
mm,
and like every once in a while he'll pick up one of my books and he'll be like, "Oh, this is pretty good." I'm like, "Well, you can read it." He's like, "Nah, I don't want to." And I'm like, "Yeah, me either." And so like it's one of those things. It's just like it is a time capsule, but it's like I also not somebody who like spends a lot of time looking at old photos.
okay.
Like, and it's like, and maybe that's because part of that is because like, so my son is trans, and so like his old photos are not him,
Mm,
and so like it's really giving me a perspective on like how we think about the past and how we like. I
mm,
mean, like I like my bachelor's is in history, like, and so like I spent a lot of time thinking about history and thinking about the past, but the past only really matters, in my opinion, if it's informing the present. And so
mm,
like when we're talking about like political history and economic history and social history, yeah, those are informing our present. But like who I was in high school, I don't know that it informs who I am now as much
hmm.
anymore because I've gone through so much since then. So I don't feel the need to like dig out a high school yearbook or those
Sure.
sorts of things. Like, I don't want to make America great again, right? Because it's like it wasn't necessarily always all that great to begin with for some people in the beginning. And so
Hmm.
I think that's just a different perspective of living life. Because I do have friends who were just like, here are my memory, but here are my scrapbooks that I made. And like I
Yeah.
put, and like look, I have a CD that goes with them. And like you pull the CD out and like I'm just like, that's a lot. Like baby books, right? People get like baby books and they put like a
Hmm.
locket of hair and stuff like that. And that kind of stuff. I'm just like, yeah, but it's like as long as you have your kid now, like
Yeah,
enjoy the now. Like so I just yeah, so I think it's just one of those things. It's just a different way of looking at things. But
of
yeah, no,
course.
I don't reread my books. I don't reread a lot of books. But I definitely
Same.
do not read my books. Yeah.
I feel that. It's so interesting though that you say that because like the Star Wars of it all, like literally there's stories being told all over the timeline. And so like I feel like it's so so there's people out there living their lives differently, like whether they're nostalgic or they're living the present,
Hmm.
like you just said. But then we are literally releasing books that happen at different parts of characters' lives and like engaging with characters from their past or informing them. So that's just really interesting that like for entertainment, we are like engaging with others who's thousands of years in the past, thousands of years in the future. So in terms of like the Star Wars fandom, that's like literally part of like the gig and part of like the fun of
Yeah.
it sometimes, which is so like ironic, I guess.
It is weird. It is definitely weird. Like I like new stuff. Like so like I'm not necessarily like I liked the sequel trilogy. Like I liked seeing new things, right?
Yes.
Um I liked like Rogue One. That's like a new story in like a time period we already know. But
Right.
yeah, like I'm not necessarily like a big like let's figure out uh how this character was a child kind of like thing. Like I'm always just like yeah, I mean, I guess. But then
Yeah.
also it's like, but also it always kind of feels like, I don't know, it always feels a little retconny. And I grew up with like the Marvel comics of like the 90s where it feels like we
Ye-
were always like going back and retconning
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm like, oh,
Changing
it's so
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
frustrating. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know.
Uh,
Like and it also depends on the character, I think. I think that
Sure.
there's some characters that I'm like, yeah, like I would love to know where Lando is from. We still don't know like a lot
Sure.
about Lando's, like that's the kind of thing I would love. I'm like, but I'm not necessarily interested in any more Darth Vader stuff. Like I'm good on Vader. So like, and
Sure.
that's different, and that's why I love Star Wars because it is big enough that you can have very different like takes on things
Yep.
and loves.
For sure. I won't get on my soapbox, but I've talked about it with friends before. I feel like I agree. Like a lot of the world is filled with sequels and like redos and prequels and all that stuff. And obviously, I enjoy them as much, as I do. My range of enjoyment of them differs. Obviously, I
Yeah,
like,
of
and
course.
if it's out there, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna enjoy it. But I feel like I'm really wanting to there be. I really feel like the Jim Henson was like one of the last true like visionary people who was like goal was to put interesting new stuff into the world. Like I don't think if Jim Henson was still alive, he'd be like redoing the Muppets. I don't think he'd be I mean, there'd be new Muppet movies, but you know what I'm saying? Like and like Dark Crystal and like he was just so like forward looking. Like I feel like he would just be doing his own thing. And so again, that's my soapbox. Like I love new too, and I that's partly why I gravitated to the High Republic so much because it was like a carving out a new space like in this world that we all love so much. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the reasons I was so excited to be invited to work on the High Republic is because I was like, wait, it's Star Wars, but we don't have to like thread the needle in these between these three movies that have existed
Yeah,
for like almost 50 years, right? Like I'm like, oh, this is exciting. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that's the thing. It's like we can honor the storytelling that's come before, but if we're not finding new stories to tell, it starts to feel stagnant. And I really think that's what people react to, like when you're talking about doing remakes. People get
hmm,
mad because they're like, wait, the other ones were still there. It was perfectly fine. Why were you doing this remake? Like, I don't know
right.
if you saw the Point Break remake, but it might have been like the worst mistake I ever made. Like, I don't know if for those of you who are listening who have never seen Point Break, the original Keanu Reeves movie, it is perfect. Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, bro love, like it's got everything you need for the 90s, like this brilliant, you
Yeah,
said, times capsule of the
time
90s.
capsule.
And yeah, and then they made that remake and I'm like, what is this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah,
I was mad at myself for spending the 2 hours to watch it, right? And so like I think it's just like I think that that's for me. Like I don't need a remake. I want you to give me new storytelling. I
same.
agree. I think Jim Henson, like he liked to do storytelling and he would find interesting new ways to tell stories that we were familiar. But he always was doing something new. I
Yeah,
was actually just showing my kid Fraggle Rock not too long ago because it's bananas and
so
it's
good.
still so
Yeah,
good. It's still so good.
right. I
So
know. I'm a
dumb.
90s kid too. I know. I
Uh,
miss the 90s. Anyway, talking about nostalgia.
yeah.
I get mad too. I heard there's talks of like a Little Shop of Horrors remake. I'm like, why? No. Like literally, like let it live. That's a theatrical production. There's new productions happening all the time. Let them happen.
Yeah.
Go see it in New York.
I
Don't
know it
remake
would
the movie.
actually be great if people got more into the theater more because I do think theater is so much more fun than like movie when you're watching it live and
Yeah,
like
I agree. I do
experiencing
feel
it.
like there's kind of a resurgence of that, like with the Wicked of it all, and like I feel
Yeah.
like there's a theater community that is thriving, and like I know there's lots of cool stuff happening over there, but I just yeah, like let it live like that.
Give
We
me
don't
a
need
Star Wars opera. I'll go see
got
it.
to get Charles in, but Charles could write some music. Oh man,
Yeah, there you go.
High Republic opera. Um, we've touched on this a little bit, and I'm gonna jump ahead one question just because we've kind of been talking about it. But you've been in this world of the High Republic for so long, one of the original authors, and obviously you said that part of the excitement was building something new. But like overall, what has that meant to you? Like at this point now in your life, almost basically at the end, like the end is here, and all the fans and the people who've been with you guys the whole time are going through it in our own way. But what has it meant to you to be a part of this initiative for such a big chunk of time?
It is weird. It is very, very weird to come to the end of this. And I think it's because it's a little bit like graduating high school,
Hmm.
right? Like when I was in elementary school, I knew the goal was to graduate high school, right? Like that was just kind of
Hmm.
like my parents were not like big like you have to go to college people, but they were definitely like graduating high school, that's how you enter the world. And so I knew from like a very like young age like the goal was to graduate high school. And then I graduated high school and it was like nothing. It's like, and that's graduation. I guess that was it. That was what I was working towards. And so I was like, I expected more fanfare somehow. But and I feel like that's kind of what it feels like. I feels like I think I think the experiences were in the work, and the
Mm.
work is what where the moments were. And as a reader, the for you that it's in the reading, right? It's in
Mm.
for me the work's done. And so for me it's already done. Like you guys haven't gotten to the end yet, but for me it's over.
Mm.
And I feel good about that. Like I feel like I don't like there are things I was like, wow, I wish, this or that, but they're not really things that are going to have ruined the experience for me. Like I do kind of wish like those that first year of the books had come out a little like further apart for the people who are not
Mm.
necessarily the fastest readers. But it was also the pandemic. So what else were you gonna do?
Right.
Right. So like like so like
We
it
were
was
loving
like,
it.
yeah, right. You're like, I can't go anywhere anyway. And so like it's a very strange thing because it did coincide also with so many
Mm.
huge world moments, like real world moments. So, like my experience of the pandemic is intrinsically linked to writing and working on the High Republic. My experience of, the current like change in streaming and the writer's strike and those sort of things is intrinsically linked to the High Republic, and so like it's really for me it's like looking back like when I was in the army, like it's like looking back on my time in the army where I'm like, yeah, I did that thing. Huh. Yeah, it's done now. Cool. And like I just, it's I'm glad I did it. It's opened up a lot of opportunities for me, obviously, just because, anytime you work on a Star Wars project, it gets different people's eyes on your work. And so like, from that I've been able to like move into writing Marvel comics. Like I was already working in television spaces during the pandemic, but that's broadened because of Star Wars. And so yeah, so like for me personally, it's helped my career, it's helped me move on. But as a creative, it's also given me sort of a sense of confidence that I can do these big things that I never would have thought I could do that. I mean, like I I I wish people could just have like a moment to like go VR and feel like what it's like to try to like collaborate with four other authors on books, because it is not a thing you do a lot, and it
Right.
is insanely difficult, because we're not just like books, it was also like comic books, and it was, there was other media, and then the Acolyte got moved into the mix. And so like so many moving pieces, it's so easy to step on each other's toes and like, eat somebody else's lunch on accident and that kind of stuff. And so it was a lot of work, and I think we did a great job. Like regardless of how anybody feels about the books, your feelings are, valid, but my feelings are that we did a good job, and I'm happy with what we did. And I hope everybody who's at Lucasfilm who worked on the project is happy too, because there's a lot of people behind the scenes who did a lot of
Mm.
really hard work to make sure that those books looked as great as they do, and also came out and were a solid storytelling that Star Wars fans deserve.
For sure. Well, I can say from like a fan creator, fan first perspective, like it's been like nothing I've ever experienced in terms of community and um just being able to engage with stories with people, including you guys, the authors, like being able to talk to you guys and interact with you here and there. And there's so much love from the fandom of, books and High Republic to you guys. And I just hope that you feel that because there's so much appreciation for what you guys put out in the world and the work that went into it. And I think it's going to only continue. Like these stories, obviously it's over, quote unquote. Like
Yeah.
me and all my friends who read along, we're gonna finish that last book and move on. But like, there's still people who haven't and who haven't experienced them yet. So I feel like it's gonna be a legacy over time that will continue to delight fans like for years and years and years to come.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what's exciting about it being books, right? Books never expire. And like the nice thing about books is they never look like they age either. Like you watch
Right?
an older movie, you can say like, oh, I can tell this is old CGI or
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
like you read a book and it's always exactly where you need it, what you need it to be in your brain. And so like, yeah, so I think it's like that's great too, because it's like, there'll be a whole new generation of Star Wars
Hmm.
fans who are able to read these. And I just think that's awesome. That's cool. And I think it's really nice to be part of something like that. And
Yeah.
also like, yeah, the fans have definitely built like a community that is probably like no other Star Wars community, which I think is lovely and amazing and inclusive, which is brilliant. And so it is that like the High Republic fans, like when I talk to folks who are in the High Republic, it is really nice because it's just a genuine love of a thing and not any kind of internet yelling.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. Well, what hopes and dreams, you mentioned it, you hinted at it a little bit, like where Vernestra might go in the future, but do you have any hopes and dreams for what Vernestra's stories might be, in the future or at this point going forward?
No, so I think this is like one of the things that's like strange about IP, like in
Mm,
like IP, I mean intellectual property when you're writing on somebody else's world, for folks who don't know that term, is it's never really yours. Like it feels like it's yours and it's yours. Like I created Vernestra. I was like, Daniel used her in Race to Crash Point Tower, but for the most part, like it was only my stories until she was in the Acolyte, and then she was like, well, it's time to put her in other stories too. And so it's weird, like when you like have like a thing or a person or a character that you're like spend a lot of time with, and then you're like, oh,
mm,
it's not mine anymore. Like it's a little bit like a breakup, right? Where you're just like,
mm.
oh, we were together, but now we're gonna go see other people. It's like, and so it's weird. So like right about the time the Acolyte came out, like I was like, oh, this is not mine. And it's it's weird and it's also part of the job.
Mm,
So but I'm also excited. Like it's also nice that like you create a thing or have an idea about a person and then somebody else is like, oh, I like that too. Let me see how I can use that. So it's
sure.
like it's weird. Like I want her to like go out in the world and in the galaxy and do other cool things and maybe have someone fill in. There's a lot of time to fill in between like the end of um High Republic and Wayseeker. But it's also kind of like one of those things. It's like, yeah, I don't know, it's like bittersweet. It's really
Mm,
it's a weird way to like, like when you work on something like I wrote like on Amazing Spider-Man, and it's like I knew it was just like I'm high-fiving this character. This is my time to hang out with Peter, and then like he's gonna go hang out with somebody else. But like when you're somebody that like that's you're spending so much time, especially in pros where you're spending so much time with them,
mm,
it is a little weird to like say goodbye to them and
sure.
to like move on. But also it's nice because I'm excited to see what other people will do with the character and see like how I can be like, oh, they totally ruined it.
Or totally
How
just
dare
geeking
they?
out, or loving it, or
She never
totally
shaved
geeking
her
out.
head. Yeah, like it's just one of those things. It's like I
Uh,
try not to get like too like wrapped up. There's so many more important things to be upset
yeah,
about than Star Wars. And so like I try not to ever like let things feel personal or anything else. But yeah, like I think it's exciting, it's scary, it's annoying. It's like all of those emotions at once. And at the end of the day, that's the work.
yeah.
And I'm blessed and lucky and so grateful to have it, to be honest. So,
That's a really, really good perspective. So I think that I love it. That sums it up. That sums up what we've been talking a lot about today, like
yeah.
adulting, right? Like that's how
Yeah.
we should live our lives, like thankful and
Yeah.
grateful and annoyed sometimes and upset, but yeah.
Also, but in the end, that's life and
Yeah,
we'll move
exactly.
on. Yeah. And one day
Exactly.
we'll be dead.
Well, it's been
And
nice
none of us
having
will
you. Thanks
matter.
for being
Yeah,
here. I'm
thanks.
See you guys next time.
On that
Anywho,
note, yeah.
life lessons with Jason and Justina. We're talking about kind of letting go and moving on, but like, can you share anything about what's next for you? Like, what other things are you working on? Like, what's on the horizon for people who want to continue to read your stuff?
Yeah, so I was just in the writer's room, funny enough, for the Carrie reboot, talking about reboots. So that comes out, that'll be on Amazon, and I'm not sure they start filming this summer. So,
Oh,
but
cool.
that should be on TV in a couple of years. I'm still writing comics. I have a couple Marvel things that haven't been announced that are coming up.
Okay.
I have a book series, a middle grade book series called Tales from Cabin 23. That's for middle grade readers. And our next book in that series by Shamila Mendez comes out, I think it's next month. Man, my brain is calendars are like a real thing in my house because I just time is like, what is it? Um,
Hmm.
and so yeah, so like it's like I'm working and writing, but I'm also again back to like being a little burned out. I'm trying to take it a little slower this year. I feel like I've worked really, really hard. I've had like a really intense pace for the last 3 or so years, at least
Okay.
definitely at least 3 years. So I'm trying to just kind of get back into the things that I love about writing, the things I love about storytelling, the things I love about my own storytelling. So I like Marvel comics are like my favorite because it's you're writing, but you're writing with intense guardrails on either side, so you're never gonna stray too far from the path. But like yeah, so like I just that's mostly what I have coming up, just these books and then probably some Marvel comics. But not a lot of anything probably in the next. I won't have a book out next year because I'm not writing anything now to have published next year.
Okay.
So yeah, so probably 2027. I'm gonna disappear and come back as like the Phoenix, like the mythical Phoenix.
You're
So
gonna
yeah.
pull an Adele and just go away for a while. I love it.
Yes, and then come back a completely unrecognizable person. Yeah.
I love it. Speaking of, I mean, that's kind of what you're working on and doing. So that's exciting. So things people can look
Yeah.
forward to. But how about what have you been reading lately? Like I usually recap books I've been reading every month, but like what's been on your reading plate as of late and that you've been enjoying?
Oh man, my reading has literally been all over the map. I've been reading there's a lot of I read a lot of horror in my spare
Okay.
time. So I've been reading a lot of Rachel Harrison, Catriona Ward, Tananarive Dew's The Reformatory is brilliant. Victor Lavelle's Lone Women. And then right now I'm reading a fantasy series by T.L. I'm gonna mispronounce his name. It's Holchu. It's Hulchu, and it's called the Edinburgh Nights series. So it takes place in Scotland, and it's just like it's like a kind of like a post-apocalyptic dystopian fantasy series about a girl who can play a marimba and talk to the dead, and that's where it starts. And it's like it's ultimately it's magical mysteries, and that's been really enjoyable because it's so different from anything I would write myself
Hmm.
that it's like it's nice to just be able to like sink into the world. And then I've been mostly watching terrible reality shows because I love traders so much. I love people showing up on TV, especially people who are like reality stars, air quote reality stars, right? Who do nothing but like go from one show to another, like just showing up and being terrible to each other for no good reason. Like just no, there's absolutely no good reason to act like this with each other. And they're like, it's a game. And I'm like, yeah, but you're kind of a terrible human being. But yeah, so like I watch a lot of reality shows too. Yeah. It's just
Love it.
brain. The brain needs what it needs.
I know, I feel that. Hey, I totally feel that. Are there any opportunities for fans to maybe interact with you at any time this summer, this year? Are you attending any conventions that you can share, anything like that, signings?
Yeah, so I'll be at Origins Game Expo. I think it's in Columbus, Ohio, in June. And then I will also be at StokerCon if anybody's going to like a writer's con. I'm just going as a guest. I'm not going as a guest. I'm just going as me going to StokerCon. But if you see me there, you can say hi, bring a comic or something. I'll sign it. I have no problem doing that. But yeah, no, I'm like not doing San Diego Comic-Con. I wasn't planning on doing New York Comic-Con unless somebody gives me like twists my arm. But yeah, I'm just kind of hanging out. But also like I'm always on Blue Sky, so you can like I got no
Thank you.
problem chatting on Blue Sky.
That answers my next question. Where can people
Yeah.
find interact with you online? Mainly Blue Sky is
Mostly
what I'm
Blue
hearing.
Sky. I still have my Instagram up, but I'm not really posting there just because, man, I'm so tired of billionaires. Like, I never want to hear about another billionaire ever again. Like, unless it's me, unless it's the billionaire, and
And
then I
then you're
want to
gonna
hear
take
about, and then
over.
I'm gonna hear, never gonna stop hearing about me.
Uh,
But yeah, no, like I'm mostly on Blue Sky, and then like, yeah, it's just like Blue Sky's fun. It's just like it's a little disastrous for sometimes right now because people just retweet like the most egregious news, and then I'm like, I'm done with today.
yeah, yeah.
But
It
yeah,
seems
but Blue
like nowhere
Sky.
safe, but You
No,
just
you
got to protect
can't
yourself.
escape. You just
Yeah.
gotta like take in the news, understand what it means, and then try
Yes.
to make the best of the
And
day.
then go watch trashy reality
Yeah,
TV
just go watch couples break up on Temptation Island. Yeah.
to cleanse yourself,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been such a great chat. I'm so thankful for the time you've been able to carve out. I loved Wayseeker, and I'm excited to, by the time this episode comes out, I will have read and reviewed A Valiant Vow, but I haven't yet, so I'm excited to experience that final middle grade novel. So thank you so much, Justina. I've enjoyed our time so much.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun. And just keep in mind we'll all be dead one day. So
For light and death. I'm just kidding.
for life and death. The High Republic after all.
Like I said in our interview, Justina and I have crossed paths a number of times over the years at different conventions and stuff like that, and it was such a pleasure to be able to just sit down and talk with her adult to adult, fan to fan, parent to parent about just not only, Wayseeker the novel, which I really enjoyed, but just life and her experience with Star Wars. And it really feels like a chapter is closing here, you guys. And I am just choosing a posture of gratitude. Like, this era of Star Wars has meant so much to me. It is really probably the closest thing to like my Star Wars that I have now, and the community that we've built. It's just been so special. And so I can't help but reflect back on all the authors that I've had on the show and being able to chat with them, and just thinking about how future fans are going to experience all of these characters on their own for generations to come, literally. So Justina, I cannot thank you enough for being here. Thank you for my friends at Disney Books for helping get this interview scheduled and on the books. I'm so happy and so thankful. Well, that's all I have for today's episode. I will be back next month with talking definitely about Andor Season 2 and all of the books and games and other things that I've been up to. So until next time, take us to that outro, Casey.